Hello everybody, this is ManuS, back with the next part of the artifact set review. Today we're going to talk about the first color of spells, red spells. This is going to be a bit longer one again because there's a lot of spells to talk about. So strap in and let's roll. Okay, so first off we have Fight Through the Pain. Not particularly interesting. Card is pretty low impact. For 1 mana, giving a red hero to armor this round is like an okay trick, but it is usually not worth the investment of a card. So in limited, I would try and avoid this. In constructed, this can be interesting due to the fact that it's a cheap way to get initiative. We've seen this in some decks, like I think Joel Larson was playing 1 or 2 in his red-black deck in the We Play tournament, for example, simply to use it to take initiative on key turns, which is an interesting use, and it is, I think, the only non-signature card in red that has that clause, and the fact that it is super cheap, costing you just 1 mana, makes it particularly good at that job, so you can just squeeze it in a turn at the end to get initiative for another lane. So yeah, keep that in mind for that use in constructed, but other than that, the card's not good. Next we have New Orders. This card seems kinda bad, and I initially thought it is pretty bad, because like you're investing a card, it is very limited in use if you compare it to the blue versions that can make any unit choose a combat target rather than just an ally. But if you look at it in context of red, of the big red creeps, and especially the beefy red heroes that fight really well, this card suddenly looks a whole lot better because it can make up for bad hero placement and then punish the opposing hero even without taking any damage yourself. So at least in limited, this is a pretty solid card that I don't mind playing more than one of in draft decks that have good red heroes, which means like the one with higher attack. If you have a bunch of like 5 attack red heroes like Beastmasters and Svens and stuff, this goes down in value significantly, but in like red-black aggro with a lot of high attack heroes, or just a red deck with the 8+ attack red heroes, this is really nice, I think, and helps you get momentum early on, snowball, killing their heroes more often, and then just yeah, pulling ahead with that advantage. Okay, so next we have Poised to Strike. This is basically a worse New Orders, since it cannot make up for positioning and that sort of stuff, but it can make up for lack of stats. A lot of the red heroes lack stats against a lot of other certain heroes. The smaller ones with 4 and 5 attack lack them against almost every hero. But even the ones with like 7 or 8 attack cannot one-shot, for example, green heroes on the first turn and that sort of stuff. So depending on what your hero lineup looks like and the sizing, and especially whether or not you have Sven in your deck, this could be fine as a filler, as like a one-off in limited, but it is not great and has significant diminishing returns, much more so than New Orders, because New Orders can basically be worse the card much more often by just targeting a valuable card and killing it where you otherwise wouldn't, and trading for that card effectively, while Poised to Strike needs the right target in front of you and the right sizing for Poised to Strike to make the difference. And yeah, in constructed, this is not a card. Defensive Stance, which is basically a worse version of Fight Through the Pain. We get 1 armor more, pay 1 mana more, and yeah, we don't even get initiative. So I think if you want to put one in your limited deck, it should probably be Fight Through the Pain. The sizing of 2 versus 3 armor is not particularly critical. I don't see like a lot of matchups where this is like hero matchups where this is making the difference between over Fight Through the Pain. So yeah, just much worse than Fight Through the Pain, and Fight Through the Pain is already not very good. And in constructed, this is obviously unplayable. Next we have Heroic Resolve, the better version of this cycle. There's 2 of these. We'll look at the other one in a moment. This one's actually pretty decent. For 2 mana you get +2 health because it triggers for itself. It only works on red heroes, so you should have at least 3 red heroes in your deck to consider it. But if you have a bunch of cheap cards, they don't have to be red cards, just cheap cards in general, this is pretty solid. Like once this triggers a second time, it's actually pretty good, I would say. And it's okay on its own. It's a decent filler probably. Nothing great, no high pick, but playable if you need another card in your deck, and gets better the more cheap things you have, especially when you have Legion Commander. This shines incredibly well because you get 3 signature cards that cost 2 in your deck. In Constructed, I don't see this being relevant in any way. Okay, next we have Pick a Fight. This is arguably a worse New Orders, in my opinion. Sure, it has some other utility where you can just kind of protect things, use like a hero to protect its allied neighbors. The problem is it only works on heroes, unlike New Orders, and the problem also is if you want to kill something, they might kill you right back, especially if there are enemy neighbors and they all deal reasonable amounts of damage. So this is pretty narrow, not a big fan of it, has a lot of blowback potential, but might be okay as a one-off, I guess. Obviously also gets better if you have a lot of Retaliate, like Legion Commander and that sort of stuff, but even there it is limited. Like with Retaliate 2, melee creeps only die if they already take or taken damage to the Retaliate, and the Legion Commander is probably just gonna die in the process. Next we have Rising Anger, the other version of this like cheap modifier. This one is much worse, since on its own giving +1 attack is much worse than combat training, so you need like to trigger this twice to make it better than a mediocre card like combat training. Like combat training is not very good, and anything that's worse than combat training is unplayable. So is this. And in Constructed, this is even worse. Next we have Set Combat Training. Initially I thought this card is gonna be pretty bad, but after playing with it a bunch and looking at it and like how it plays out, I think the card's actually quite decent. Like I play it a lot more than I thought I would in the beginning. A lot of the red heroes, for example, have 8 attack, which then means they do not kill the 10 health green heroes, and combat training makes up for that. It's also permanent. It's basically like a longsword that costs mana instead of gold, which is fine. Like it's not great. The fact that it only can be used on heroes, it definitely limits it much more. The green version can go on any unit, which is much better, but it's also much worse in green, arguably, in a lot of ways than this is in red. So yeah, this lets you win. This is also quite good at letting you win certain matchups in turn 1, just like New Orders. Definitely better than Poised to Strike. And at least in aggressive red decks, like red-black, for example, this card is quite good. Like I've seen Stan even play up to 3 copies in a red-black aggro deck, for example. I myself played like 2 or 3 copies in decks before, and it felt totally fine. Because yeah, if you get that critical hero kill in these decks turn 1 on the flop, is a super big swing, and also the added damage to the hero is also relevant because you're pushing for towers aggressively, so it has additional value there. It's obviously less valuable if the added tower damage after you win combat, or if you don't get into combat, doesn't matter as much. So the less aggressive your deck is, the worse this gets. In Constructed, however, this is not a card. Rend Armor, aside from some cute interactions with Centaur War Runners, Double Edge card, effectively giving a unit -8 armor permanently. This is not very good. If it would cantrip, it would be like, if it would draw you a card as well, it would be a nice filler, just like Spot Weakness. It would even be better than Spot Weakness. But yeah, the way it is, this is not worth the investment of a card. way too situational, and even when it does something, it's not great. There's not a lot of armor to fight, and usually if there is, it's like 1 or 2 armor most of the time, and then this is effectively just deal 2 damage. That's not a great deal. And yeah, in Constructed, even less so. Next we have Smash Their Defenses. First off, in Constructed, this is amazing. This is a staple, especially if you have 3 red heroes and deploying 1 on the turn or river. This is great at dealing with all the powerful improvements that there are in Constructed. There is quite a lot. There are potential Oaths, Mist of Avernus, Secrets, Conflagrations, Ignites, Gold Mines, and so on and so forth. Card does a ton of lifting in Constructed and is widely played in red decks. And in Limited, this is still a pretty fine card, but can be a bit more situational and sometimes just sit in your hand and do nothing. And yeah, you also need enough red heroes to have it flexible enough to actually get to the lane that the opponent has an improvement in, because they will try, if they are good, they will try to avoid putting improvements into lanes of red heroes because of that card. Keep in mind when it's sitting in your hand blank and you have an improvement yourself that is not critical anymore, and you really need a card, you can consider killing your own improvement to draw a card and cycle this. It does work on your own stuff. Next we have Dimension Spot Weakness. This is another decent filler, a bit worse than Smash Their Defenses, but it still cantrips and gives you some solid utility against especially like Axe and Bristleback, for example, or Mazzy, especially Mazzy. Give a hero and its allied neighbors pierce this round, draw a card. Nothing exciting, but something that you can easily pick up and play a copy of in almost every red draft deck. In Constructed, not sure how playable it is, but probably a fine one-off if your deck cares about it, and depending on the metagame. Like right now there's a lot of red-black with Axes and Bristlebacks, making this yeah, look pretty appealing, and Stan Sivka, for example, was playing 1 copy in the main deck for that reason, because otherwise, yeah, dealing with that Bristleback or Axe can be quite the pain. This can be used on the first turn to facilitate yeah, trades or getting in damage to trade next turn. Next we have Clear the Deck. I still don't fully know how I feel about this card. Initially I thought it would be pretty good, partially because I didn't know what I was doing and looked at some yeah, card rankings, and some of those had that pretty highly and I played with it, and also like read some yeah, thoughts on the card from other players by now. And yeah, I think it's probably not very good. It's just pretty situational. Basically need to be in a lane where there is enough going on and you have at least 2 or 3 heroes for this to pull its weight. But it can be fine as a one-off, I guess. The thing is that you often have this one lane that is heavily contested, and there are like multiple heroes, sometimes even 3, 4, or 5 heroes at some point, and then having a Clear the Deck and getting off a Clear the Deck to completely break open the lane can be super powerful and devastating. So for these spots it seems pretty nice, but other than that, in a lot of other scenarios it's just pretty underwhelming or even bad. But yeah, I guess playing 1 copy in Limited seems fine. In Constructed, this is unplayable once again. Next we have Crippling Blow. Another pretty bad card. Yeah, modify a hero with -2 attack. It's the reverse combat training for 1 mana more. I don't think this is playable at all in any of the formats. Combat training lets you make trades, which makes up for investing a card. This avoids trades, which does not make up for the card in a way, because losing your hero, for example, is not yeah, losing a card, but playing Crippling Blow is. So yeah, I don't think this card is playable at all, not even as a filler. I have not played it yet, and I don't plan on doing so. Even as a one-off, you basically always have better cards that you could be playing. Next we have Sucker Punch. This card is actually pretty good, I think, in constructed, if in limited, if you have at least 3 red heroes. If you have only 2, you can consider playing 1 sometimes, but it's not great. But once you have 3 red heroes, I think this becomes pretty good. You can use it in any lane. You usually get a matchup in one of the lanes where this works, and then this is somewhere between a way to just kind of time walk the opponent by shutting down their only hero in the lane and denying them to play cards, and at the same time killing them for free. So this is really powerful and swingy. It's kind of like a conditional red version of coup de grace in a way, at least if the hero in the lane is the only hero of the color and so on. But yeah, usually the hero dies for free in the sense that it doesn't deal damage to your hero, and they cannot play anything with that hero that turn, and that all for the small cost of 4 mana, making this pretty strong in the right deck and right situations. And even in constructed, if you play enough red heroes, I can see considering like low numbers of this, but I'm not sure if it's going to be good enough in constructed. But yeah, the effect is pretty impactful, so I wouldn't rule it out. Next we have Dresden's Standards. This is a pretty strong red spell again. You modify a red hero with, after you play a red card, give this hero and its allied neighbors +1 attack and +1 armor. One of the fewer ways for red to protect your own creeps and make your lane sort of push in. This obviously, like all these cards, triggers for itself and then can be re-triggered with other red cards. This helps greatly to stabilize and push back a lane, for example, and just makes fighting that kind of block of hero and neighbors really, really annoying and makes them really durable. So a fairly high pick in limited, great card. In constructed, might even be playable there, but I'm not sure how playable and in what decks. There's a lot to figure out still in constructed. But it seems like it has the power level and the impact that you would be looking for to consider it for constructed. Next we have Enough Magic. That's a pretty cool card. Straightforward and simple, proceed to the combat phase. It's basically a more aggressive version of Gust. Gust just silences the enemy heroes. There's still like potential to use items and you can do things. But with this card nobody can do anything. You just slam it, lane is over, everything clashes into each other. A really nice finisher, makes sure it can do multiple things with initiative. It can make sure that you kill a hero or a tower or multiple things that are dying at the moment and you don't want your opponent to prevent from dying. Or the other way around, your hero, your tower is close to death and currently it's not taking damage or not dying and stable, and you need to buy another turn or protect your tower, and then you can just slam this down, deny the opponent the opportunity to try and squeeze in the last damage. Yeah, like, I've been quite impressed by the card. When I initially saw it, when I was spoiled, I thought this is probably going to be pretty gimmicky and not a particularly relevant card, but after having played with it and against it, the card's actually pretty strong. I happily have it, especially in my aggressive decks like in red-black aggro. This card is amazing, for example, and really, yeah, shuts the door on your opponent trying to stabilize. And even in constructed, I think this can be quite interesting in some numbers. I think someone was playing some copies in their We Play red-black deck. It might have even been that Joel had one. I am not sure. Anyway, on to the next card. Next we have Raise. Condemn all enemy improvements. It's like the 5-cost smash their defenses that doesn't draw a card. Problem is, it only works in one lane, and how often does your opponent realistically have more than one improvement? And then you're just better off smashing their defenses and drawing a card anyway. It's cheaper and it's, yeah, card advantage, while this is only if they have 2 improvements. This is not playable, in my opinion, in either constructed or limited for that reason. Smash is just a million times better and less situational. Next we have Routed. I see that card played against me a fair share, and I think the card is pretty bad or even really bad. Like, modify enemy heroes at the fountain with X attack, where X is half their attack. Modify them with your tower has -1 mana. The thing is, it's a lot of win more. Like, by the time you cast this, for your opponent to have multiple heroes in their fountain, probably 2 or 3 to make this remotely worth it, you already have to be smacking them pretty well. And then sure, it kind of shuts the door on them, but so would something that actually impacts the lane and impacts the board right away. And every time you're not crushing your opponent, you have the thing in your hand, the opponent has like 1 hero in the fountain, and you just wish it was a real card that did something for you. So yeah, I can't see this being good. Maybe I am wrong about it. The game definitely works differently than a lot of other games, and certain things have a very different value than in other games, but I kind of doubt that I am wrong on this, and this is somehow more valuable than it seems. It's just so conditional, first of all, and second of all, it just, the things that it does are not bad, but they are not good enough for how conditional it is. And also, in general, the sort of win more issue that I mentioned, that is independent of how valuable the effect of the card is. If it only does something in a situation where you're already doing well, the card should probably be something else. Because you want your cards to be good when you're ahead and when you're behind, especially when you're behind. Because when you're ahead, you're winning anyway. You don't need the help. You just need your cards to do things. Okay. Next we have Spring the Trap. This card is just amazing. It's super powerful, or some people tend to say, win the game in any lane. But not sure if it's like that good, because I don't think the card like immediately wins the lane. But the card is super powerful. The fact that you can play it cross lane makes it so good at winning or defending lanes that are on the brink, and it's just really great utility, very powerful. Getting 2 4/8 center hunters for the cost of 7 is amazing. As you can see, they are valued at 5 mana, so you're getting like 10 mana worth of bodies for 7, and you get 2 bodies worth in cards for 1 card, and then you also can play it wherever you want. The card is just so undercosted and flexible, it's insane. Card is a slam dunk and an easy splash in limited. Like, if you have this, you're almost certainly gonna splash red or like the basic hero or something, and this, and if you have a couple other good red cards, put them in your deck. This card is just really powerful and a perfect splash card. And in Constructed, this is one of the staples of red decks, alongside Time of Triumph, of course. Speaking of Time of Triumph, one of the most stupid bombs in Limited. You turn your heroes into unkillable, monstrous Terminators that just obliterate everything in their wake. The card is another great reason to just immediately splash it. No matter at what point in draft you pick it, you're just always gonna put it in your deck with a red hero and play it, because it just wins the game. When you play it on like 2 or 3 heroes in a lane, the lane is just gonna be over. And in Constructed, this is the red staple, the cornerstone of red, the reason to play red in Constructed, and the best red non-hero card. Not close. Okay, this concludes the review of the red spells. Hope you guys enjoyed it, just like in the past. As usual, let me know in the comments what you think of my card evaluations. Let's have a discussion. Let me know what you would like to see in the future and so on. If you enjoyed this, please don't forget to like and hit the subscribe button, turn on the notifications to not miss out on the rest of the series and future content. You can also find me on social media over here and live streaming on Twitch. And one last thing, if you want to keep the content going and support the free content, please consider whitelisting YouTube. This really helps a lot. That's it again for today. This was the Artifact set review with the red spells. I'm your host ManuS, and thank you for watching. I'll see you next time. Bye.